Very good morning to all of you. We are of course running 10 minutes late, so my sincere apologies for the delay. Although everybody was here on time, but we were chatting late. It's a very special moment for us as we begin a new school, the 12th School of OP Jindal Global University, the Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development. I'm personally very delighted to welcome all the students of the inaugural batch of the Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development. I believe there are 7 students who have enrolled in the MPH program, and 6 of whom are present here. 1 is not well. So the fact that 1 is not well shows that we need to improve the quality of public health in the country. So you have a real, experiential learning out there. But let me say the fact that this university and this room is very special, and that's why we're having this launch here, because this particular room, where we started on 30th September 2009. We began in a very modest manner. The entire university with only 100 students and 10 faculty members and 20 administrative staff. This room was the office of me as Vice Chancellor and the office of the 10 faculty members and the 20 administrative staff. We had nothing else other than this room and then 2 classrooms on this side and 2 on this side, which constituted the entire university on 30th September 2009. In a very modest manner, we began with 1 school, and today we have 12 schools and over 10,000 students and over 1,000 full-time faculty members and 4 million square feet of built-up space. So when you look around the students who are part of the Masters in Public Health, you can rest assured that you are pioneers in a unique form of institution building effort that we are undertaking with the launch of the Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development and the offering of the Masters in Public Health, the MPH program. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome the founding faculty members of the Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development. Again, a very small but an amazing group of individuals who our Dean will formally introduce. I want to also take this moment to introduce and welcome the Dean of Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development, Stephen Marks, who is no stranger to the university, but in this role he has assumed a very significant responsibility with a view to building a new school and essentially laying the foundations of institution building for the study of public health and human development. As you can imagine, this university has been largely a liberal arts, humanities and social sciences university since its founding. And as we evolve school after school, from law to business to international affairs to public policy to liberal arts to journalism to architecture to banking and finance to environment and sustainability to psychology and counseling to language and literature and then finally to public health and human development, if you see closely our trajectory, we have been consciously keeping ourselves outside and locating in the periphery of STEM and medicine. We don't have STEM disciplines offered in this university, and we don't do medicine. The closest we went close to these areas is when we started the architecture school, when we started the psychology school, and now when we are starting the public health and human development school. There are very sound reasons why we have evolved in that manner, and we intend to remain so as we bring in certain dimensions of STEM studies into these schools and programs as we progress. I also want to say that it's a very special moment for us because not only we are having the commencement lecture and the inauguration, but we brought a friend, an institutional partner, and indeed a very dear friend to deliver the commencement lecture. As some of you may be already aware that we have a very deep and pervasive relationship with the University of Southampton. The leadership team of the University of Southampton is visiting us, and I'll have them introduce themselves shortly. But we are very fortunate that Professor Dr. Sabu Pandadas, Professor of Demography and Global Health, Associate Dean, International and Defined Social Sciences at the University of Southampton, has kindly agreed to deliver the commencement lecture. I want to personally take this moment to thank Professor Stephen Marks for not only conceiving the vision of the Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development, but also to be able to leave a tenured professorship at Harvard University and to move from Cambridge, Boston to Sonipat, Haryana. He has been deeply committed to this university for a very long time, but the fact that he chose to do what he did speaks volumes about his deeper commitment to India and to the cause of public health and human development education. Thank you, Steve, for your leadership. I want to end by saying that we hope to do many things under this school, but most importantly, we want to focus on interdisciplinary teaching and research in this school. We pride in the fact that in this entire university, we don't have a single building which has the name of a school in it. We don't believe in that notion. So all infrastructure is shared infrastructure, and we are conscious of the fact that this shared infrastructure has now translated into shared ability to offer courses, shared ability for forging collaborations between faculty, shared ability to do research, and shared ability to publish. I'm happy to report that every day after 4 p.m. in the evening, we offer over 400 courses that are entirely cross-listed and cross-registered electives that are available for students across all schools of JGU, regardless of whichever school or program they belong to. And I can tell you, and I say this everywhere I speak about interdisciplinarity, technically, both Oxford and Harvard, where I studied, claim to be interdisciplinary institutions. Practically, they are absolutely not as far as students are concerned. Technically, a student of Harvard Law School can take a course at the Harvard Business School, at the Harvard Kennedy School, and of course at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. But practically, nobody does that because of two reasons, none of which are purely academic. Distance and logistics on the one hand, and the inability of deans of these schools to come together in determining timetable. It is as ridiculous as that because of which no student can ever take a course in these other schools. I tried hard, but I simply couldn't. The same thing is the case with India as well. Delhi University, which is Queen of Indian Universities, 100-year-old. I was a student at the Faculty of Law. Within 5 minutes of Faculty of Law, Delhi University is located, the Delhi School of Economics, where none other than Amartya Sen taught. And within 5 minutes of the Delhi School of Economics is located the Faculty of Management Sciences, where very distinguished people have taught. Never before in the history of Delhi University in the last 100 years, a professor has ever walked into the other school to offer a course. Never before in the history of Delhi University, a student would ever walk into the other school to take a course. It simply doesn't happen. So, in 2010, when we started the business school, we decided that we will commit ourselves to interdisciplinarity, and we began the process in a very modest manner. And we had this joint deans committee which I would chair, and we will have our faculty members and our deans deciding, timetabling and the time which classes will be held so that students from other schools can take. Now today, we have a full-fledged office called Office of Academic Planning, Coordination, and guess what? Interdisciplinarity, APCI, whose mandate is to work with deans to determine scheduling and classroom allocation and teaching allocation so that every school puts a critical number of courses as a part of cross-listed electives so that all those courses are lined up 4 p.m. and beyond till almost 11 p.m. so that students, regardless of whichever school or program, UG or PG or PhD they belong to, they can cross-list electives. This requires not as easy as rocket science, but even more than that, to be able to sit together and decide scheduling. So I'm so happy that the data that APCI produces is phenomenal. We have law students taking courses in liberal arts, and banking and finance students taking courses in public policy, and public policy students taking courses in international affairs, and international affairs students taking courses in other schools. It's just extraordinary. So I am only hoping that the public health students make the best use of the opportunity. It is not just the 4 or 5 faculty members and the courses that the public health school offers. We don't have, and something which I tell the South African friends, unlike universities in the Western world, our fee structure is not pegged with credits. Regardless of whatever you belong, whichever school you belong to, your fee structure is fixed, and you can take as many courses and as many credits you want. We don't charge. It is a truly charitable endeavor where there is no limit on your ability to take courses in any school or program, regardless of whichever school, and your only ability is your ability to actually take as many credits to ensure that the academic integrity of the process is maintained and you're actually able to do it. I know I've taken more time than I should have, but I want to take this opportunity to welcome the students and the faculty on what we are about to embark. Is a very important journey in really building one of the newer schools of public health at a time when the world is barely recovering from the pandemic and also simultaneously facing new and emerging issues surrounding public health and human development. With those words, I'm going to invite Professor Dr. Stephen Marks, the Dean of the Untitled School of Public Health and Human Development, to say a few words.
Big bang, starting something that is going to grow big. Obviously, you start small. We are small, right? But I had the opportunity, Raj, of meeting and interacting with these students yesterday. I can't imagine a better team to start with, nor can I imagine a better team of faculty to start with. So I guess my job, before turning it over to our main speaker, a dear friend and somebody who can speak more authoritatively than I can on the global challenges of public health, or what is the grand global health challenges of the 21st century. And I'm really looking forward to that, because that is sort of the reason why we are all so committed to making this new School of Public Health and Human Development a successful opportunity for our students to enter into careers and to make a change and to make a difference. But in order to do that, we're relying on faculty. You were alluding to the value of taking courses across schools. And one of the things that we've just done, and we had the opportunity to chat about this earlier today, is our class in statistics that will be done with our colleagues at the School of International Affairs. We've got an opportunity there for our students to benefit from a faculty member from another school. Small beginnings, and small beginnings are going to grow. So one of my greatest pleasures in having the honor of heading this new school has been to find and work with some outstanding faculty. Nitesh Bansal is the Dean of International Collaborations. He has enormous experience at this institution. He deals with many other high-level issues for the institution, and therefore is in an excellent position to help us with that. Nandita Ban is our Dean for Academic Affairs. And I'm not going to give her CV because you know that, but it's the background of all of these faculty members is exciting and interesting, that we've all had the opportunity now to benefit from her wisdom in guiding the academic structure of this program. Sambuddha Chowdhury is a fabulous member of our faculty who inspires us and with his enthusiasm and his willingness to dive in and do things, to go where no one else has gone and make things happen. It's wonderful to work with him. Shamim Mohammed brings a vast international experience to us, has been a voice of wisdom, sitting in the background, saying the right thing, intervening when it makes a difference, and getting started on things. And of course, his academic background is going to benefit you all students immensely. And Swati Narayan is kind of a, how shall I say, sort of a comet that flies through the air, that bristles, that bright and full of energy and ideas and so. Plus, probably is a model for us of what it really means to be committed to human development. That's what it's all about. And so I could have spent a lot more time introducing each one of them, having you applaud after each introduction and so on, but that would have diminished the time available for Sabun Padmanas to speak to us. So with that, I think I want to, in my closing words, thank Dean C. Raj Kumar for having had the wisdom to unexpectedly, after seeing the growth of the first 11 schools of his institution, to announce that the next one would be in public health. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. And then he surprised me by saying, and I want you to be the dean. I said, oh, wait a minute. I can only do that if I have immense support, and I'm feeling that support right now. I'm feeling that support in this room. So we can all make it happen. But now, Raj, I guess I turn it back to you for the next item on the agenda.
Yes.
And thank you very much all for being here today, and especially welcoming the students.
Everyone. So how should I begin? I should say that, well, I'm truly honored, humbled, as well as inspired to be back in the campus, because I think I'm looking at you, the students. You're incredibly fortunate to have this opportunity to be at this historical moment, because this is actually, we're creating a history here. And you may be, I was thinking that for an inaugural cohort of students would be about 4 to 5 students, then let's go through it. But you have 7, which is great, but I think the credit goes to actually our friend and colleague and wonderful distinguished Professor Mark Stevens. So, well, you're going to be trained under him, and your career outlook will be different. And that's what I can predict. I can already foresee that how you're going to play, your kind of how you're going to function in the 21st century. I mean, the rest of the years to come. But may I also thank Professor Rajkumar, who has been really one of the greatest sources of inspiration to all of us. I think he set his goals and vision, and I've never seen someone who's really so dedicated, committed, and determined to achieving this with full resilience. I think whether it is COVID or any other pandemic, you just smile and just move forward. And that's the spirit. And I'm so honored to be sitting next to you, Professor Rajkumar. So today, I'll keep what I want to do is that, well, you please buckle up and then wait. There will be a little roller coaster ride. That's what I'm going to really share with you. It is going to be really looking at the grand global challenges, health challenges at the universal level, not the planet, but well, of course, planet is part of it. But so it is just to really give you an overview of some of the challenges that you may confront in pursuing your career in the field of public health, as well as any sector. You take any sector, whether it's transport, whether it is housing, whether it is health, any sector, you are really going to experience some of this. Let's start with the reflection of what's happening in today's world, regional conflict and global impact. Sometimes we may think, this is actually Syria, a conflict that has been going on for the last decade, actually, 1 decade. So what is the implication? The healthcare structure, the healthcare infrastructure is completely demolished. Everything is in shambles. You can see, no education. There's a cohort of young people not having the opportunity to study, not having the opportunity to seek healthcare, not having the opportunity to have nutrition. So these are really significant challenges. So I'm really thinking that, well, at some point, I have a reflection that the world is in reverse here, unfortunately. And you'll be wondering, if you look at what has happened since the beginning of the century, we have had more wars and conflicts than ever before. So it was actually the beginning of 2000, we've seen more conflicts than ever before. So the last century was 2 world wars, and probably there could be a potential 3rd world war, but it didn't happen. That was all concentrated. But in terms of the scale, in terms of the impact on public health, impact on mental health, this has been significant. And what we are seeing is a continuation. This is actually Ukraine. What we have seen is, this is a school building that's been demolished. How many of you think that how many years would be required actually to really rebuild this infrastructure and to actually provide that education to those people who have lost the opportunity? And also, it's not just that, but it's also the impact that will have on human life. So that's where the human development comes into the picture. That, it's beautifully coined. Public health and human development is part of is actually is the same, but it's just two sides of the same coin. Imagine like what's happening in Africa. So I always think, wearing my hat as a demographer, I think the future of this planet is African, right? We know why that's the case, because of the incredible population growth in the region. But at the same time, these are all migrants actually coming out of Africa to search for or seek better life. 10 years ago, or even 15 years ago, that these migrants, same migrants, wouldn't even know, sometimes some of them, they don't know how to read and write. But in today's circumstances, this is probably happening right now. The boats coming to Europe from Africa. There are doctors in it, there are teachers in it, there are lawyers in it. So there are all educated workforce who are moving. Probably they are migrating, or they are fleeing for the fear of persecution, or for the fear of suppression, whatever. There's a lot of political conflicts, economic circumstances. So it's really very, very complex. And that's exactly the point that I'd like to highlight with these 10 key points. Complexity, uncertainty, and interdependence are part and parcel of local and global challenges. So why I say interdependent is because I think we have, today's world leaders have created a situation where it's all kind of I use the word deglobalization. Unfortunately, that is happening with populism and other political anarchy in certain parts of the world. But that is not the right way to do it. So imagine that how we have tackled this global pandemic of COVID is only through cooperation, only through global collaboration, only through that scientific exchange of ideas, exchange of interventions, and so on. So war, conflict, and persecution, I think it is really going to remain as one of the significant challenges in the future. Economic recession, as we speak, some countries are experiencing severe economic recession. I mean, especially those countries who went through a kind of difficult period in the last couple of years. It is actually global, and I mentioned about political anarchy and populism. Population change, that is so present and dangerous, because I think danger in the sense that populations, we have had wonderful people like Paul Ehrlich and Julian Simon who have really debated whether we should really have too many people on the planet. But it's not about the numbers, the quantity, it's about the quality, right? So if you have a quantity that balances with quality and with the right skills and human skills and capabilities, then I think we can actually do better in this world. It's not that we don't have space actually on the planet, but it's about governance, and that requires significant amount of attention from public health sector. Public health is going to really be at the forefront, determining the population change, the structure, composition, and so on. And part of that is actually urbanization, which comes with migration. The cities are growing rapidly, different lifestyles. As we know that even in rural areas. So I've just come back from a village called Bijwa in rural Uttar Pradesh, and I could see that everyone has smartphone. Smartphone. That's probably your thinking. Why have I said that? I mean, I was really not thinking. They are actually using the 4G now in villages. So that means they know the world better. So they could even really seek healthcare without even going to a primary healthcare. These are some dramatic changes that are happening, that have been happening, because every time we say that, well, look, generations change, but the pace in which the generations have changed in the last 10 years, phenomenal. And that's also the pace in which Jindal has transformed in the last 10 years, has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Jindal has secured its position in the global stage of higher education. Just like that, many things have happened. Many things have happened. Pollution and infections, I think I'll come back to that. Changes in disease patterns, I think these are really very important. We have to, as public health experts, I think when we talk about statistics, we need to understand data. We need to use data. There will be lots and lots of data that will be produced, generated, that will aid us to understand disease patterns, predict disease patterns, so that you will be able to really reduce the burden of health expenditure. Because health expenditure is something that if you have a proper preventive system in place, then you wouldn't need to really spend lots of money on healthcare. The UK has a national health service, which is actually a publicly funded healthcare system. Now it is under significant threat because you have to have, everything is based on taxation, right? So, but can other countries follow? Yes, you can follow, but it needs a very clear governance structure. Food security, I don't want to food insecurity, but there are certain places which are really badly affected, and that's partly driven by environmental changes and distress and climate change. I think that will also really create lots of challenges. Technological revolution or technological innovations are actually something that we can actually look forward to in terms of addressing some part of the problem, not all problems. Because people think that you bring in artificial intelligence and you can transform the world. No, that's wrong. Because human intelligence, I think we have had used only probably 3% of human intelligence. There's still 97% of the intelligence that we so there's quite a lot to learn, and of course technology will play a key role, there's no doubt about that. But I think all these are really embraced in this whole issue of this divide in the world, like which will rich and the poor. Well, we can see that in countries like India, China, probably about 97% of the wealth is held by 1% of the population. So that's not really going to really help us. So this is actually going to be a huge challenge. So this is actually a theoretical model for the whole world, but it is actually what it tells us that about 95% are in the top 40%. I mean, they are having the so wealth is not equally distributed. That means there will be also that lack of distribution. Sorry, the inequalities in health and healthcare and health status and health problems. So the question is about what is fairer and what is sustainable. Well, we have the wonderful. This time, for instance, I think I've been on the committee of the Millennium Development Goals. I was very critical because part of the reason is that, not for any wrong reasons, but for the reason that sometimes you develop these goals, you should really have indicators that you can objectively verify and measure and evaluate and come with a conclusion. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. But although that was a good benchmark or baseline to start with. But the 2030 SDGs actually provide a very coherent framework to reduce global poverty, inequalities, inequity, injustice, and instability. But the fundamental question is that I'm asking you guys that can we make all societies equal?
Very difficult.
Very difficult, almost impossible, isn't it? So what we can actually do, so that therefore we can't create a perfect society. What we can, I love your response, well done. I think, Mark, we're going to have a very enthusiastic cohort of.
I saw that yesterday too.
Excellent. Keep asking questions. I think that's the only way to progress. Fantastic. Excellent. That immediate response, I love that. So I think that also creates a problem for me because I can continue forever. Yes. I don't want to because I have my colleagues here and So the question is all about, of course, we can't create this, we can't make the society equal, but we can reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. That's something that we can actually do. And we can actually preserve the resources for the next generation. And that's the whole idea of sustainable development. And in fact, we know that the father of sustainability, father of sustainable development is none other than the father of the nation, who is Mahatma Gandhi, right? Who at that time had a very deeper reflection of what is sustainable development. It is all about the development that meets the needs of current generation without compromising the abilities of future generation, not your generation, the future generation, to meet their own needs. So that's actually the sustainable development. It's very easy to say it, but it's very difficult to accomplish because we are all human beings tend to be selfish at points, and I think that's one of the challenges. So this is, I don't want to go through it because we know about all these goals. They are fantastic goals, fantastic targets, but in terms of the capacity, we don't have, countries don't have capacity, A, to identify or to launch instruments to achieve those goals. B, they don't have the technical capabilities. Because the ministries, so even in the UK ministry, the British ministry, two of the ministries, they didn't know, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, they didn't have a clue of how to measure certain things. because they have to rely on academic. That's where the academia comes as one of the strong pillars to support this whole idea. But well, we have seen. I don't want to really go through. We know this. The type of infections emerging and re-emerging all the time with mutations of viruses and so on. That has been unprecedented. Again, I'm saying that we have seen more infections since the start of this century than in the last century. Of course, the last century, 100 years ago, we had the influenza pandemic in 1918, and which really had a huge toll on populations, especially in India. Lots of people in Mumbai at that time had no other options, but they died miserably, and or they were ill for a long time and so on. But these infections will really, will evolve for every now and then. So these are some of the pandemic milestones, from smallpox to, I'm sorry that we don't want to see these images, but that's part of public health. From smallpox to black death to, you name it. So from then malaria, every year about 2 million lives are lost. And coming back to HIV/AIDS, we don't have a cure at the moment. We have certain cocktail therapy or therapy, antiretroviral therapy to postpone the date of expiry of human beings. We don't have a proper vaccine yet. See that we will be in similar situations. This is what I think. We will be in similar situations, not in the long future, in the very near future. We will be confronted with these infections more often. In fact, when I was giving one lecture just before the pandemic, and I said that come January we may have a new strain, and it happened. And some of my students said that I had some intelligence about I had gathered some intelligence, and I could have been in prison, because actually. So please don't quote or anything. But imagine the scale of this pandemic: 614 million cases. These are all diagnosed cases or detected cases, but there are lots of other cases that we don't know in the other population. 6.5 million deaths. That is substantial in this century. We don't want 6.5 million people dying in front of us because of an infection. That means our science has not progressed to the level that we want, right? It is not of course, in the future we will be better prepared. That's what Bill Gates, he wrote in his new book. I think although he's not an epidemiologist or a public health specialist, but he has really that passion. And he has predicted that there will be more of these challenges, but we will have to really start preparing. You keep the umbrella before it starts raining, so you have to have the umbrella ready. And that requires a lot of preparation, and I think that's going to be one of the challenges. And most of these diseases are of zoonotic origins, that means like from the animal origins. You know that the COVID, that was, the pangolin was the intermediate host. Having worked very closely with the Ministry of Health and the National Population and Health Commission in China, I know the Chinese situation, and especially in terms of their in the 1960s, that was a country that was subject to massive poverty. 40 million people died during that time. So they relied on these animals for consumption and so on for a long time. So it's not new. But now pangolin meat is actually one of the luxury meats. So there is actually poaching that is happening. There's a lot of interactions between humans and animals, and that would really have this challenge. I don't want to get into details, but there are two terminologies that you may want to remember. One is the genetic drift, which is genetic drift is about that viruses tend to mutate very, very fast sometimes. And from the intermediate to host to the human beings, by that time it could really appear in any form, because we can't really predict anything. So that lack of predictive power makes the whole issue more challenging, very, very complex as well. And there is also another term called genetic shift. That means like two viruses can actually mutate, and then they can produce a new strain, and that has probably happened. When the first COVID, or when the SARS-CoV-1 happened, I was in China. I saw how public health systems responded to this challenge. And believe me, I'm not really in favor of any country. I'm a global citizen, although my heart is in India. I'm a global citizen. China managed it very well. China could have managed this pandemic very well, but unfortunately, what happened was that for this time, It was in 2003 April, the first COVID pandemic. At that time, the world wasn't really that. So that's what I said. I said that the world has transformed completely over the last couple of years. Now, the human mobility has been unprecedented. So some of our research conducted at Southampton by the World Pop, my colleague Andy Tatum, so he was actually featured in CNN and BBC and so on, was that they did a modeling using data from the airlines, data from Facebooks and all those kinds of big data, and also data from the satellite, tracking the people's mobility, and they made a significant, robust finding that if we had delayed the pandemic if we had about a 2 weeks lag, it could have prevented the world pandemic from Wuhan. So that these are really. So the question is that we are not really. So we need to have surveillance systems, public health surveillance systems that are really very important. The other thing is about look at the patterns of diseases that have emerged since the start of the century. Huge number of diseases, right? So like in terms of different strains like H1N1, H5N5, all those kind of different combinations of diseases. Some have re-emerged from the past. For instance, Ebola virus, which is a deadly fatal virus, it has got a 60% mortality rate, and that was in the 1970s. That was really quite prevalent in some of the African countries, like particularly in Congo and so on. It re-emerged. It re-emerged in 2012, and then we have seen a series of that infection over the last couple of years. So that is actually another challenge. So Ebola virus is not tackled properly. As I think I haven't checked the most recent data, but probably last month there have been some cases in Africa. So that what does it tell us? That when you detect these cases, the probability the probability of transmission elsewhere is very high, isn't it? Because of human mobility. And in fact, Ebola from Guinea, it was actually concentrated in 3 African countries: Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. So it was just one woman from that village moved to another village, and then she was carrying the virus. So it is. We have to really wake up and smell the coffee. We have to think out of the box. We have to have kind of innovations, healthcare innovations, to understand and predict the patterns of diseases. So COVID deaths, I'm not going to talk about it, but look at these three very big, very large countries in the world, 3 wonderful countries: United States, Brazil, and India, all together accounted for about almost 50% of the mortality. About 3 million deaths from these 3 countries. That is quite alarming, and particularly at this point in time. So will we ever see an end to the COVID-19 pandemic? That's a question that we need to answer. Will similar or new infectious disease re-emerge? That is also something to do. But in my view, I think this is something that I've put up, that these are complex, imminent, and unpredictable. They are inextricably linked to the physical environment and anthropogenic behaviors. We need to understand, we need to have a very thorough understanding of the anthropology of human behaviors to better understand, better predict the virus outcomes and so on. Because sometimes certain infections, certain viruses mutate in remote areas in the world. We don't know. We have to have that understanding. So that is where the interdependence comes. So we cannot say that, well, look, a problem happened in Africa and we don't care. You have to care. I think it doesn't matter whether you are in Sonicot or anywhere, you have to care, and that's very important. That's why that collaboration is very, very fundamental in all of this. How am I doing in terms of time? I mean, we should in probably another 10 minutes or okay. And I can go on forever. I can keep you the whole day. But I don't want to do that. But anyway, I'll just quickly go through, because these are all images that we can actually, charts. You may like it or you may not like it, but they're important. So, where, in the future, the vast majority of the future growth, population growth is going to happen in Africa. There's no doubt about that. India's scope is actually significant, phenomenal. For the next 35 years, India will reap its economic dividend, demographic dividend, as long as we make sure that we are, we have enough, we have the right skills. For some jobs, we don't know what kind of jobs will come in the next 3 years. We don't know. There are new transformations. But India has this huge potential of opportunity to take lead in the field of public health as well. So there are lots of lessons that we can learn from each other, from different countries and so on, but India can play a prominent role. India's population, I think, will peak probably around 2070. So we have that time, but 2/3 of this country has already achieved a fertility below replacement level. So what it means is that it is experiencing rapid population decline, and that means like we'll have also aging. So in a year's time, probably in a year and a couple of months' time, we will overtake China's population officially, and that would be that would really add, so just like global ranking. To be the number one in the world, that means like there are lots of responsibilities. The countries will really look at India and ask questions and so on. We should be prepared. China, the case is that with a significantly larger population, older population. That means like think about disease, non-communicable diseases will be dominant in China as well as in India. In India, what's happening is that there is a reversal in the timing of certain diseases, such as cardiac, heart diseases, now cardiovascular diseases, stroke, and so on. It's happening not in 50s and 60s. It's actually happening in 30s. So because of lots of stress, and there are lots of other factors. Lifestyle factors are really prominent. Great population, we've seen that this is going to be a challenge. Europe is already confronted with a significant challenge, and many parts, so we sometimes think that we are a young democratic country. That's true, but every household has an older person, right? So that, if you put that together, I think my colleague in Harvard, I think David Bloom, and I had lots of discussions about this, and I think it's very clear that within the next 20 years, we will be having about 30%. That means about 400 million people aged 60 plus. That's a public health challenge. It's going to be because we already, and human life expectancy is increasing because with advanced technology and so on. So that's something that we talked about. Southampton is really in the final stage of trial for cancer vaccine therapy, cancer immunology. So if that happens in the next 6 to 8 years, you will hear breaking news from the world that we have a solution to combat cancer. So these are all, these will have implications. Migration, I don't want to talk about it, but most of the migrations we think that that's happening between poor countries and rich countries. That is wrong. It is actually happening. So within Sub-Saharan Africa, the magnitude of migration is within Sub-Saharan Africa, from one poor country to another poor country. But other major flows are from South Asia to Western Asia, like Gulf countries and so on. That will also in the future, that will probably change its course of direction. But then we have, from Central America, from like Mexico to America and so on. That's the other flow. But whatever it is, the one important point is that these are not really skilled migration. Vast majority of migration are unskilled, very risky migration. That will create challenges for the healthcare systems in receiving countries. India is no exception. I believe that probably we don't want this to happen, but Bangladesh, for instance, Myanmar is, for instance, are a significant threat of coastal erosions. It's already happening. If there is we don't want this to happen, but if there is a greater impact of tectonic shift, whatever tsunami effect in those regions, the whole country, the Bangladesh will be important. So where will they go?
They will come here, I think.
They'll come here. They'll come to Sonipur. There's no doubt about that. So these are real challenges we need to understand. Middle class population is booming everywhere. India, the cities are growing at phenomenal rate. Delhi is expanding at the speed of light every day. So that's where when we say, look, India's economic position has changed. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons is because of this change that is happening at the macro level. So you see that Delhi's population will hit 35 million within the next 8 years. 35 million. That's more than the size of the British UK population.
Sir, is that going to be just the population because of reproduction, or is it going to be the immigration that is going to happen from across the country? Like Sri Lankans are moving in.
Yeah.
and Bangladesh, and there is Rohingya problem there. So there has to be something, and India being the big brother to these subordinate
Correct.
countries
Correct.
has to take it in.
Yeah. And the best way to answer your question, wonderful question, thank you. So the best way to answer your question is that Deng Xiaoping, the Chinese leader, when he came up with the draft plan of the Chinese economy, he wanted to see what China should look like in 2009, and he achieved that dream. Nothing. He was not an economist. He just had a pencil, and he worked out the plan. And he made a remarkable statement because they were really establishing special economic zones in the coastal areas of China. And he said that if you open the windows for fresh air, you can't escape flies. Flies will come in. Absolutely. India is actually going to attract not just from Bangladesh, Nepal, and other Sri Lanka and so on. Significant flow of people from Western countries will also come, provided that there is an immigration policy. So, but the magnitude of the migration will be mostly internal migration. There will be people who will move. So the former president of India, I had the great honor to meet him and discuss one of the projects called Pura, which means providing urban amenities in rural areas to empower rural people with that technology to prevent migration. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, it is not going to happen. Can you really stop an aspiring villager to, not to migrate to migrate from you cannot stop. They will migrate. There will be migration. Every day from train from Patna to Delhi, you will have to, if you do an interview there of passengers coming out, you will find out lots of people in the informal sector coming. So it's like, it will be crowded. It will be, that crowd will really determine. Anyway, so the global burden disease, I think the vast majority of the disease is going to be really focused on non-communicable disease. Dietary, most of them are related to diets, diet-related like high blood pressure, smoke. These are all top diseases. In India's case, heart diseases are really on the top of the thing. But body mass index, the human fat, that's actually evolving rapidly and so on. I don't want to go through it, but I'll be happy to share these slides. If that helps. But reducing poverty, malnutrition, and disease are critical for sustainable human development. I think that's the message that I want to give. There are also climate change impacts. People misunderstand between climate change and extreme weather. So when we have rain, so yesterday there was actually a little bit of shaky weather, and we think that that's part of the climate change. It is not. Climate change is something that you really observe systematically that data for the last 100 years. In the last 100 years, what we have seen is that, particularly look at the sea level rise of 20 centimeters globally. Just this glass, imagine that I'm putting another 20 centimeters, the sea will come out, right? And sea has already come out, leading to coastal erosions in many parts of the world. 60% of the world population live near the coastal areas, within that 30-mile zone. So that is going to be a significant threat. I don't know what kind of public health measures that we can actually put in place to really overcome it. But these are just quick, some facts. This is actually in Greece. The because of heat, extreme heat, we had the forest started sort of burning, and India it has not happened yet, but I think many parts of the world it has happened. Cities underwater for the first time. Unusual weather. So my colleagues in Oman, they were saying in Muscat, so Oman receives rain only once a year. That's in January. Only once. They said that the last couple of months they had frequent rains. They said, what is happening? So that means like there are cycles, climatic cycles are changing. That will have an impact. We had a drought in China, and then probably in the same neighborhood, like in Pakistan, there was actually flooding. Totally distorted weather. Global water stress is going to be another challenge. Access to safe drinking water, especially the people living in the Middle East, they will be significant threat, I think, in terms of water stress. Air pollution, I don't need to talk about it, but Delhi, you look at the world's top 10 most polluted cities of PM particulate matter 2.5 emission in 2020. Look at the 10 cities, 9 cities are from India. 2021, I looked at the data, they have changed. Ghaziabad is actually on the top, right? And Delhi is not actually featuring there. So we know that why that pollution is happening. This was actually an image from the NASA, which clearly captures not just pollution from vehicles, but also pollution from dust and other things like smoke. I mean, that's not pollution.
It's appropriate for the.
Smoke in Delhi, vehicle emissions. I think the roads, for instance, I was really surprised to see the changes in the infrastructure. We need that infrastructure change now. It's too late. We need that. We need that innovations in vehicles now than in the future. Then we have industry emissions. This is something that we cannot stop, because that if you stop, that will also hurt the economy. That will bleed the economy. So you have to be careful. Road dust, significant contributor of lung diseases and lung cancers. That doesn't mean that if you are exposed to pollution in Delhi for 5 years, you will get lung cancer. No, it is actually a systematic exposure for a longer period will result in lots of challenges. I mean, from respiratory diseases, breathing distress to cancers and so on. Municipal waste, burning, construction, crop burning, these are all really significant part of the problem. Look at the Gurgaon, Faridabad, Noida, and Ghaziabad. I think that whole network, probably with the road network, I think it's going to change, but these are really significant challenges. Look at the Delhi airport. I mean, you have to be really very careful. I think if I have some vision problem, I wouldn't even know that that's a plane. So that's really significant. And Diwali, I mean, this year I understand that the government is really putting pressure not to really celebrate Diwali by through this firecrackers. These are interventions. These are not government interventions. These are public health interventions. That's something that you need to remember. Carbon dioxide emissions, surface temperature. Look at the sea is coming to the land. I mean, that is happening quite fast. So let me conclude this. I mean, actually, 10:30 was my time, and I want to really finish that. The future of your health is on your wrist, actually. So you can I'm not promoting Apple or nobody gave me any money or anything. But it is true, isn't it? It is true. There's quite a lot of technological development. But one thing that I met with the 4 weeks ago, I met with the CEO, founder CEO of the world's largest, the world's top drone company. It's called Aerodyne. And he told me something very interesting. Imagine that somebody in the rural area is having a heart attack. It'll have an inbuilt system of camera on the drone. What it'll do is that the drone will fly with the first aid box. It'll land there. It'll see that, well, what is the language that the local person is speaking. And the audio will come up. There is a screen option. A video screen will also come up, saying that now, turn the patient this side, give them the CPR, whatever medicines, first aid medicines, drones. First time I've ever seen drone was actually, in my life, was in Rwanda. They were transporting you, because Rwanda is a land of 1,000 hills. So you have to have these, these systems. So that, I was really absolutely fascinated by this. The second was actually during the Ebola time, when the British Army was actually posted to really look at this, to prevent it, because a pandemic can also create a war. You know that, right? Ebola created a war internally in those three countries. So the British Lieutenant Colonel, who was actually leading that mission, told me, he came to give a lecture talk to students. He told me that they were all waiting. So what the US Army deployed a little robot to the villages and to get the temperature check and so on. So fantastic technologies with no contact, human contact. What happened is that the people ran away. They thought that there is a killing machine that has come. So, that doesn't mean, what it means is that technology is a solution, but technology also presents lots of challenges, significant challenges. I'm so sorry that I took a lot of time. I could have really continued forever, but I think this is just, I just want to give you that little overview of the globe. That's what I think. Thank you.